How can the civil courts justify having such a low standard of proof when children are involved? Surely the standard should be raised to the criminal standard.
Well, if you raise the standard to beyond all reasonable doubt, you have to consider how much evidence there will be to prove that a child was being abused. And we don't have eyewitness accounts about what happens to children. We don't know often why it is they're abused. We very rarely get cases, certainly contested cases, where parents say, I did it. So we're always faced with a situation where the state says X has happened and the parent says why it hasn't, and too often the child isn't in a position to know. But it goes back to the previous answer I gave. Right? If you have the burden of proof so high, then the likelihood is that you're going to make a decision in favour of keeping that child in an environment where they are going to be harmed and abused and may die. And we can't do that. It's got to be balance of likelihood. Okay? The burden's got to be on the local authority to prove their case. They're the ones that have to shoulder the weight of evidence. We've got to have a system which means that the evidence that they bring to court is properly tested, but equally that the parents don't have to prove their innocence in order to get their child back. This isn't about the parents proving they didn't do it. It's about the local authority proving their case that the parent has harmed their child. Okay? So if they don't prove their case, if they can't call the evidence with their scientists, for example, to demonstrate that a child has been shaken, it's not up to a parent to cast their mind back to think about how this child may have come to their injuries. How could a parent know, for example, that their baby was vitamin D deficient? That's the process of the court investigation, okay? So it's lower because we have a child's welfare as its pivot. And the balance of probabilities means it can tip that way in favour of the local authority or that way in favour of the parent. Too high, and the risk is we'd get it wrong in too many cases, and that's simply not acceptable.